Hello everyone, today we're going to be talking about the Callisto Protocol and my kind of thoughts, impressions, and some other little topics. I want to start off by saying that the PC performance is definitely a problem. It should have been ironed out, it should have been tested and looked at before release, and honestly is inexcusable because it needs to run and function properly on everything. And obviously there are always things that are kind of out of the control of developers, etc. But obviously there was something that they missed. So let's move on from there. I hope that they fix that. I don't know. I heard that they released a patch for PC. I know the evening after the launch on console, they released a patch for the console. So if it's fixed, that's awesome. And if it is fixed and the performance things are better, people need to go back and they need to edit their Steam reviews, because leaving it there can substantially hurt the game, which is unfair if, of course, they fixed it. And of course, I mean, the amount of review bombing is insane, and the amount of misinformation being spread across the internet due to review bombing and the all-around hate towards the PC version is really skewing the overall public thought on the game, because more people are focusing on those reviews where it's like this majority versus what is out there on other consoles where it's running pretty well. And to note performance, I'm playing on an Xbox One X, so I can play at 4K. I'm assuming that it isn't optimized on last gen to go to 60, so I'm assuming 30. And regardless, it has ran pretty smooth. The only hiccups that I had was a little bit of stuttering, the opening cutscene of the game while my game was actually still installing. So I was playing it while it was installing. So I'm sure that had something to do with it. I haven't had any stuttering since then, and I've only had one moment playing the game where it did a load into a new area. I went into the new area and I kind of walked back real quickly, and the whole area kind of vanished for a split second and then popped back in, which for me isn't a big deal and is not game breaking. It's not immersion breaking, and it's not affecting my overall feel of the game. And that's pretty much it for how I've been affected by any performance problem. So let's move on. The overall world and universe of the Callisto Protocol, right? It really gives me Riddick, like the Chronicles of Riddick vibes. It gives me vibes of that universe, and the prison kind of reminds me of Butcher Bay in a way, right? And it's just the whole world is very well developed. The lore, the background, the details, every tiny little minuscule thing is well made, right? And I'm kind of going to bring that into people talking about the game is slow. You're right. The movement speed is slow. The look is slow. Everything's kind of slower in comparison to your typical action horror or maybe even some survival horror games, but I would say Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 8 are pretty slow. They're quicker than this, I guess, to a degree, but they're still pretty slow. The gunplay in this game is way better than any of the recent Resident Evil games, in my opinion. It's similar, though, to RE2 Remake in a way, I guess, but I still think it's better. It feels better. It's quicker. The overall gunplay is pretty quick, pretty fast. The combat, the melee combat, people call it clunky, right? But, I mean, I guess technically, in a sense, it is, but the way you dodge and move is really smooth. It's really easy. You don't even have to time it. You can just hold the stick in a direction. Honestly, you could just do that and you're gonna dodge. Though the enemies can eventually block your attack after a dodge, or they'll kind of got to dodge in the right direction, or they can still do some damage, or your attack's not going to be as effective, or they can hit you while you're hitting them. And so there's actually a lot of complexity in the way that works, and you actually gain new abilities, new moves, new counters, etc. from upgrading your baton. So there's a lot of complexity, and I feel like a lot of people are just not quite understanding how exactly the combat, the melee combat works. And then your gun is like an extra tool. So, you can go into an encounter and you can actually, a lot of encounters, you can sneak up and take out some enemies. There's certain enemies that you can't insta-kill by sneaking up on them, but you can take out the smaller enemies then go after the bigger enemies. There's enemies that shoot at you from a distance, but if you shoot their head off, they still come at you, but they can't shoot you from a distance. And then the other enemies, you can kind of shoot their legs off so they're crawling, that slows them down. That way you can take out the other guy while dealing with that guy who's now crawling towards you, which you can just stomp and not have to waste any ammo or any energy to do anything. But then also there's environmental hazards, and you can pick someone up with a telekinetic glove thing, and you can throw them at spikes, or you can throw them at this and throw them at that. But that's also another strategic thing. So if you kill them with an environmental hazard, they don't drop resources or any kind of loot. Whereas if you kill them normally and then you stomp them, they will have loot. And I'm not going to compare this to the thing that everyone compares it to, but I do find it unfair that it's being criticized so heavily for even some of the things that exist in other games, but that is what it is. So that's what I think about combat, the world, PC performance, console performance, stuff like that. I also want to say like the gore, my god, I thought the gore and stuff was really good in like Resident Evil 2 remake and stuff like that, but the gore in this game, man, is next level. Like, it's way more intense, and death is definitely a mechanic and definitely something they want you to die a lot. They want you to die over and over, and it is a relatively challenging game that literally just has easy, normal, hard difficulty. Playing through a normal, it is definitely a challenge. Most people are probably going to have to play through an easy. It's fun, man. And I love the small little details. Like I said, with the gore and stuff, which I haven't seen anything that gory since the Friday the 13th the game. The small details, like the fact that your baton is magnetically attached to your straps on your back of your prison outfit, or the fact that you take your gun and you put it like between your pants and your shirt and behind you is awesome. And how diegetic it is with the health and the PK type stuff. It's awesome. That's really awesome, actually. The lore and world building is there, man. It's pretty detailed. There's a lot that you can get from it. The sound design is immaculate. The voice acting, story so far seems really good. So, and I think it's intentionally slower and more meaty and brutal and methodical, right? I think that's a purposeful design of the game. And dismemberment and just that strategy that I was talking about in your encounters with enemies and stuff is very important. And I mean, if you go in there just swing, you're gonna die every time. If that's all you do is just sit there and swing your weapon over and over, you're gonna die, because you're gonna do so many hits before you lose like your stamina. You don't really have a stamina meter, but you do get tired, right? And your attacks become slower. You gotta back up and give yourself some time. You gotta block. You just gotta be really smart. You gotta stay on your toes, and the game keeps you on your toes 24/7 because it's always something. There's always something. You're very rarely ever just like, okay, I'm safe. It is very rare. And I'm trying to think anything else that I can talk about here. A lot of people have been talking about the linearity of the game, right? Like how linear it is. And I think that's just how linear it is, and its length is a funny thing to criticize, because Resident Evil 7 is I don't know, anywhere between a 9 and a 10 hour long game, right? It depends on how much you do. Resident Evil 8, Resident Evil 2 Remake both took me about 11 hours to fully 100% complete, right? And then you're looking at this game, which, I mean, okay, I've seen a couple things say 10 to 15 hours. I've seen other things say 7 to 10 hours. I mean, regardless, it still falls within that realm of about the same length as a new Resident Evil game, or Dead Space, or Evil Within, or any of these other like survival horror games, right? And the thing with a survival horror game is that you don't want a survival horror game, or any horror game really, to be 30 hours, 40 hours, 50, pushing 100. It just doesn't work. It's just stupid. It just doesn't work. You want them to be this kind of short experience. It's for replayability. It's for keeping the experience tight and just well done, right? It doesn't have to be this insanely long experience. And honestly, who cares if it doesn't have New Game Plus right now? Are they going to add it? That's wonderful. Honestly, I think it should have been there at launch, but guess what? They're adding it. You want that? Awesome. If you don't, awesome. It doesn't really matter, because you can replay the game regardless. You don't get to keep all your upgrades, but honestly, who cares? You can play through again, and you could choose to use different things. You could change your strategy. There is a pretty good element of different ways to approach certain scenarios to a degree, right? Even similar to other games in the genre. So that's just kind of my little thoughts and impressions. Overall, I think that I really like the game, and I think it's probably the best Resident Evil game released in 2022, and it's probably one of the best looking games that have released since the next gen console release, and one of the most next gen visually, similar to something like Horizon Forbidden West or even God of War Ragnarok. It's one of those games that truly is pushing something. It's pushing visuals in a new direction that we will really truly see what it's capable of in the future, in the next few years, 100%. And I'm really excited about that. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys check out the Callisto Protocol. I hope that all the issues and performance problems that anybody's been having, I hope they get fixed. I hope that people give this game a shot. I hope people check it out. If you don't think it's worth the money right now, then wait till it's on sale. If you want a New Game Plus, well, then wait till it comes out, because I'm pretty sure it's going to be a free update. So you also got to remember that this studio is full of industry veterans that put a lot of love and passion into this game, but also they're a relatively small studio on probably the round AA-ish scale, with a budget that's also still within that realm. They definitely didn't have a AAA budget. They didn't have a God of War Ragnarok budget, as far as I'm aware. And I'm pretty sure that people from PlayStation actually helped them finish up development. Maybe that's why it runs better on PS5 than everything else, apparently, according to the internet, but I don't know. For how relatively small their studio is and how much they tried to do, they made a really good product, man. I mean, it feels and looks really, really good. And it's cinematic. I say go play it. I say that it's probably one of the best games released this year. It could be a Game of the Year contender for me personally. I don't know. Right now, it's looking in that direction, but by the time I beat it, who knows? My mind could completely change, or I could be head over heels like, yep, this is the best game of the year. I don't know. We'll see. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a wonderful day. Thank you very much. See you later.